Hey, crypto heads, it's the Goose with the Cryptic Paranormal Show. We are back for another awesome Thursday night. Wanted to thank you guys because the big boss man himself, Dave Woolover, messaged us earlier and said our numbers have been amazing the last couple weeks. So thank you all for watching the show and supporting us.
We got three
Before
people
we,
watching us now instead of two.
well, yeah, and
Yes.
probably three of those are us. So it's a slow progression. We'll have
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get to
tens
that
of
10 people.
That's right.
We're gonna do it.
That 10. But before we get to our legendary, amazing guest, SHERRI, break, we will go around the horn to see how everybody's doing. Same as always, busy. The kids are like in that almost starting school frenzy. We have softball starting up again. We have marching band starting up. It's insane, but it is what it is. We love it. We love it all. So just running. How you doing, Denise?
Good. I mean, all of the above. The kids are getting
Yeah.
ready for school. It's a little chaotic. And of course, we have a jam-packed couple of weeks before they start. So it's good time.
It's fun. What about you,
Yeah.
Heisenberg? You have is Lincoln headed to preschool now?
Okay, yep, over there at the church.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's amazing. It's time.
Is he excited?
Flies, dude.
Yeah, I think so. I think Kate's more excited. She's talking about going to all these things, like all these like conferences and shit.
Oh,
And I'm like, why?
yeah.
Get used to
Why?
it, man.
But
There's a conference for everything.
Yeah.
There's concerts. You're gonna be busy.
yeah, and I'm going to see Extreme on Monday
Is
What's
like
that?
outside of the house?
in Detroit.
What?
Holy crap! Awesome, man.
Yeah,
Good for you.
I was outside of the house yesterday. Went to got cigarettes.
I was
Well, I mean, the little steps, man. Baby steps.
Yeah.
We'll get you out there.
I'm trying.
Well, everybody. All right. That's enough of our business. Let's get to the meat of the show. I've followed SHERRI Break on Facebook and all her adventures for I don't know how many years. I think we met a couple times at the Kent Paranormal weekends. She is a wealth of knowledge, and I think tonight we'll probably just say and go, and then we'll just watch the comments and we'll ask questions because I know you have so much to talk about. You've worked with so many local locations, haunted locations, historical locations, and like us, you love the history part just as much as the haunted part. So I guess the first question before we get into all that, we always like to ask everybody their origin story. Like, how did you get into this? And then we'll just go.
Well, I came down in a beam of light.
Knew it.
Kidding.
I knew
Just
it.
kidding.
UAPs, huh?
No. I was raised by fairies in the woods. No, not
I
that.
find that more believable than the UFO.
The UFO thing, right. No, so I was born in Canton, Ohio, and I was born at a time when there were some really cool television shows on TV. You had The Outer Limits, you had The Twilight Zone, The Addams Family. I mean, you had some really cool shows. So I was a kid of like 4 or 5 years old watching The Twilight Zone and digging it. I wanted to get a suit like Rod Serling, I wanted to be that guy in a room and talking to people, maybe not in the voice that he used, but having that commanding presence and telling stories. So I started early on with listening to stories that my elder family would tell me. I had aunts and uncles and great aunts and great grandparents. And I was the kid that would sit around and listen to them tell all the stories, not only family stories, but ghost stories as well.
Yeah.
And that piqued my interest even more. And then when I could read, I would go to the library and I would get books. Now dig this, I'm like 8, 9, 10 years old and I'm getting books on the pyramids in Egypt, UFOs, extraterrestrial life in space, man, myth, and magic, African voodoo, stuff. And I'm reading all this and I'm thinking, I'm not normal because all my other friends were like getting books on, See Spot Run and all this. And I was looking at these photos of these shrunken voodoo heads and wondering, how did they do that? Or, I would see the letters ESP extrasensory perception. And I'm like, what does that stand for? And then when I found out you could actually like make a game of these cards and then you would try to guess what the symbols were on the back of the cards, I was doing that even before I could like count to 100. So I was like the odd man out there for a while. And then in my teens, I was into anything and everything that I could read on ghost hunting. And not that many people were into that in the 70s. In my early 20s, probably 1985, I did my first investigation. And I did the first like no of paranormal investigating. I trespassed. Oh no, into an old abandoned house out in the woods, just outside of New Philadelphia, Ohio, and had a little bit of an experience there. And that kind of piqued my interest even more. So I've had that love of the paranormal since early on. And I always thought I'm open-minded, but I'm skeptic, which makes me a little bit of an unusual investigator, because I don't believe everything, every little thing that people tell me.
Yeah,
I got to see it.
Good, you can't. That's good.
Right. I got to research it and I got to debunk it. And in my mid-20s, I started Civil War, not investigating, Civil War reenacting, which was my love of history. Yeah. And then we would all gather at these campsites late at night. We would reenact these battles and stuff, and we'd be in period attire, and I'd be carrying the candle lantern, and I'd be walking around the fire with all these reenactors, and I would start telling them about some of my paranormal investigations. And then I would somehow blend that in with the local history. And it was there that I thought, this is my love. I was working in nursing at the time. I'd quit my job. I was staying home with the kids. I want to design a haunted walking tour, a haunted history walking tour.
Awesome.
And the first time I did it, I just built a website. I was 37 at the time.
Yeah.
I'm going to be turning 60 this year. So I've been at it a while, and it sold out. I had 30 people who paid $10 to come and listen to my stories as we walked throughout this little town in Stark County, Ohio. And from there, it went on to haunted dinners, bus tours at Gettysburg, Las Vegas, international tours to Ireland and Scotland, investigations on, like the USS North Carolina, Waverly Hills Sanatorium. And some of these locations I've rented out over 100 times. That's a lot of rentals and a lot of knowledge to have, when you investigate with 40 or 50 people and they give you all that feedback. So that led to writing the books. So that's pretty much that in a nutshell. Did I kill like 20 minutes there for you?
No, you're fine. So,
We'll talk
so many questions.
Denise, just give me a little wink or something, or like this.
No, you're fine.
Keep going.
Wrap it up.
So,
no, keep going.
I am a mom, and I would love it if my kids would get books on voodoo and all kinds of stuff. How did your parents take it, though?
Well, that wasn't the cool thing back then, because we weren't immersed in so much paranormal stuff as we are today, because now kids are watching Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventure, Ghost Asylum, the list goes on and on and on. Kindred Spirits. I mean, so they're bathed in that knowledge. They know what an EVP is. They know what EMF is. They know, doppelgangers are. I mean, they know all these terms because they see them on TV, and they're more commonplace. I see husbands and wives coming to ghost hunts. I see grandparents bringing their grandkids to ghost hunts. So it's more acceptable today, to delve into this, like with your kids, with their knowledge, because it's so commonplace. But back then, I was a little bit of an odd character. I remember my mom was a Girl Scout troop leader, and I was the one who would bring the Ouija board to the overnight stay. So I was that kid. And, I think it's cool, Denise, that your kids are into this. That's great. My kids now, when I tell them, oh, hey, I'm going to investigate this, or, hey, guess what? I rented out a battleship, or, hey, I'm going to be on TV. They're like, what else is new? Right. So that's great. That's a hobby that you can have with your kids then.
That's
an interest that people can share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My girls are interested in it too. Actually they hung out with Denise's kids for a little bit when we were at Madison. I got a 16-year-old, well, about to be a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old. One is pretty skeptical. She's all about the history. The other one's writing to go. So I'm like, okay, when you guys got to get like a
Yeah.
medium here, like a better
They would be a
balance.
great
But
team, though.
I know they would. So I can't wait till, because a lot of places they still have like the age limits, which I understand.
Yes.
I can't wait till
Yes.
they're almost a few years older, and then it's on, because I'll have my own little team. They'll be part of Dark Alley.
That's
Cannot wait.
cool. And as me being a rentor of these places, I can bend the rules a
Yeah.
little bit for some of these events because
Oh,
they're
cool.
considered a private event since I write the
Mhm.
check. So
Yeah.
whereas a lot of buildings are 18 and over, I'll have people contact me and say, hey, I got a very mature 14-year-old who lives for this. This is going to be a birthday gift. Do you think we can bring them?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And every case is different. But I love to make somebody's day, because when that 14-year-old walks into that prison, and I'll hug them and I'll say, hey, I'm about to make your day, because, if you were any other kid, you'd have to wait 4 years to come here.
Right.
So, take a lot of pictures and brag to your friends because you're the cool one tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got a question already from Miss Linda Dix, my sister. What's up, Linda? What's your favorite place in Gettysburg? Mine is Devil's Den, Little Round Top, and Spangler's Spring.
Wow. Okay. I would have to say Sachs Covered Bridge. It's technically off of the battlefield, but it was used by General Lee in retreat from the Army of the Northern Forces. So when General Lee retreated to the south, some of the troops crossed over that bridge, Sachs Bridge, and it is said, and I've never heard it, but it is said if you stand there, in the evenings, that sometimes you can hear the horse's hooves and the sound of the wagon wheels as it comes across the bridge. Legend also says, and there's no historical fact with this, but there were three soldiers that were executed by hanging on that bridge during the retreat. So, you get a lot of urban legends and a lot of old wives stories and things like that. But I'd have to say Sachs Covered Bridge, just because of that feeling that you get when you walk across that bridge. Some days it's nice and light and airy and beautiful and bright. And other times when you cross that bridge, it's like somebody threw a wet towel over your head.
Oh, wow.
You can barely take a breath. And I love it. I love finding the not so popular places to take people to, because everybody's heard of Devil's Den. Everybody's been to, Spangler Spring, Little Round Top, the Peach Orchard, various places like that. As a historian, as a paranormal historian, the entire town was used as a battlefield.
Right.
It's just not what is behind that national park fence. Every house was involved. The basements were used. The attics were used. Sharpshooters leaning out, getting a beat on somebody. A lot of the women would go out and they would give water or food to soldiers, regardless if they were Northern or Southern. And it touched every single life in that town. And, it's such an overwhelming, heavy feeling walking practically anywhere in those streets. And you can look, especially on Baltimore, you can look up at those buildings and see where cannonballs went into the brick and where bullets were fired, and fragments of that brick is still, exposed today. So I love Gettysburg, and I have a tour I'm taking there in October of next year. We have a haunted Gettysburg going there. So thank your sister for that question. That's a good question.
What does the Gettysburg tour tell us about it?
Well, it's everything I want to do. That's the great thing about putting these itineraries together, is I get a little selfish. I don't want us to really waste time doing stuff that's not interesting or not cool or not going to give us a result. So the hotel that we stay in, I've chosen. I've stayed there numerous times, and it is a haunted hotel. It's actually where the I always get it reversed. The right flank of General Pickett's charge marched right through where the hotel was built at. So, which was pretty cool, because you had 20 some thousand men basically marching in there to their death. So we have a 2-night stay, and it's right across from the battlefield. We have a group dinner that we do so everybody can get to know each other. We also do a tour on the battlefield during the day, and then we go back in the evening, and we're there at sunset at a couple different locations, just where activity has happened. And it's not like in your face activity there. A lot of times at Gettysburg, it's more subtle things. It's the smell of camp smoke.
Yeah.
When there's no fires out there, it's the sound of horses around you on the field when you're the only person standing there. Sometimes it's the smell of lavender, because a lot of the women, when they would go there to bury the dead, because it was July when the battle was fought, and these bodies were bloating within a day. The smell was horrible. Horses and mules that had been hurt during the battle were burnt. So you had the stench of death everywhere. And these women would come and they would help to bury the bodies, and they would soak their handkerchiefs in lavender or rose perfume and hold them over their noses.
Wow.
So to have somebody on the battlefield experience that and smell that lavender or that rose is a pretty interesting thing.
Yeah.
So we do the visitor center, which is beautiful. We shop. We always allow a lot of time to shop and to snack and everything. Then we get back on the bus and we do a little drive around tour of Gettysburg. We do a walking tour at night with Mark Nesbitt, Ghosts of Gettysburg tour, which is phenomenal. And let's see, we go to see Jenny Wade's grave, who was the only civilian who was killed during the Civil War there during the battle. And then we stop at the Flight 93 memorial on the drive back in Pennsylvania, which is it's pretty heavy. Yeah, it's very emotional for a lot of people, because most people that sign up for a paranormal trip like this to get away, they tend to be sensitive. And then you take them to a place like Flight 93 crash site.
Yeah.
And it can be a little overwhelming for everybody, but that's an important part of our history. And a lot of us haven't made the pilgrimage there yet to see where that crash happened and the beautiful memorial that they've built. So it's a weekend of haunted history. It's fun. I do an impromptu haunted pub crawl.
Oh, nice. Love it.
Yeah. You got to love that, cool. Right?
Yeah.
Is there a trip to Friendlies involved?
Well, the last Friendlies was there, and then I want to say they closed.
Oh, no.
No.
Yeah, let me think. Let's see, there was McDonald's, there's a Friendlies, there's the train museum. I'm going
Kate's
down
gonna
on my
flip
head.
out, man.
Yeah. I know they were extremely short of staff last year when we were there, and there was mutterings of possibly closing. I hope not. I like Friendlies ice cream.
Yeah.
We had one right here, like right next door in Kent, and they closed that one a long time ago, but that was the one we went to all the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's why they're so rare.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll check just for you.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Darren has there's 3 parts to this question. Okay. I don't know what that is. So
if I don't know the answer, I'll just make it up.
Okay.
All right. So I guess first, let's go back to the first one. He wants to know how you would explain PK to someone that's trying to learn about it.
Oh,
psychokinetic.
Wow.
Yeah, psychokinetic.
Yeah. I would say read, and not what you see on the internet.
Yeah.
I'd go old school, go to the library and get out some old books, because there's a lot of great stuff out there.
Yeah.
Anything by Rosemary Ellen Guiley, I would strongly suggest. She's got some books out on that. I would research a great deal, and then I would practice a little bit. I would immerse myself in that. And that's what I do. First off is research. So don't believe everything that you read on the internet, said President Lincoln.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
I just real quick. So I read a lot about it in a book by Lloyd Auerbach. It's just called How to Be a Ghost Hunter, and it's really simple, and it's like it's easy. It's an easy read, but there's a lot of information in it. And he goes into like whole chapters on PK, PKE, all the different levels. So
Yeah, Trent Brandon has a great book out like that too. It's just a good basic book, good knowledge to have. And then I'd branch into something like even Hans Holzer,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ghost book that he did. It's got like 600
Mhm.
pages. There's some great cases in
It's
there.
like my Bible. I have that. It's
Oh
always
yeah,
within arm's reach.
I had the pleasure of meeting his daughter.
Oh,
Um,
Alexandra. Yeah.
yeah, a few years ago we did an event together, and she was a blast. Alexandria, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I do. I would research it all. I'd go, old school with it and
Yeah.
get out some of the books I call them the masters,
Yeah.
the
Yep.
people before there were television shows on the paranormal.
Right.
Yeah.
Linda wants to know if you're going to be advertising the Gettysburg tour 'cause she's extremely interested.
She
I
said
have been
very.
Sorry, she's
Ray.
very interested.
very all right. Great. Thank you for asking, Linda. Yes, I have it up on my website, which is hauntedhistory.net, hauntedhistory.net. There's a photograph of the Haunted Gettysburg logo, and just click on that, and it'll take you right to the page. The cool thing about that tour is that we're offering transportation as well. That's included in the price. So we have a magical bus that appears in Canton, Ohio, and the tour leaves out of Canton and returns to Canton, because I find there's a lot of Civil War enthusiasts and a lot of ghost hunters in that Cleveland, Akron, Canton,
Oh,
even
yeah.
Columbus area that love to make that trek over to Gettysburg. So the price does include the round trip coach bus. And if you live closer to Gettysburg, and you don't want to take the bus, then you can just meet us there at our hotel, and all that can be arranged in advance.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bus is fun because there could be a couple surprise stops along the way.
Nice.
Love it.
Lots of paranormal trivia and prizes and all that cool stuff.
That's awesome.
And
I love buses.
we talk about it all the time too. Like whenever we go on an investigation, we spend probably 75% of the time just sitting around the table talking, So I think the bus ride would be fun, just hanging out
Yeah.
with a bunch of like-minded people.
Yeah.
And
Yes. I first started doing bus tours. I had my Haunted Heartland bus tour that I did in the Canton, Ohio area, and I started those in 2004. And it was a 3-hour round trip bus. It was $35 a
Oh, wow.
person. And we would go to 7 locations, and we would get off the bus, go in them. We had a cemetery that we did. We went to Zor Village, and actually went into the old Zor Hotel. We did Rogues Hollow and Crybaby Bridge.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so it was really cool for $35. I mean, that was,
Yeah.
and it sold out. I would do 2 or 3 a month.
Oh, yeah.
And I did those for several years. And then I branched into taking buses to haunted locations and spending the night, like the West Virginia Penitentiary. It was,
that's so cool.
I think it was like $75 or $80 to hop on the bus with me, and we would take you to the
Wow.
pen. We would ghost hunt overnight, just our group. Then I'd give you pizza and all the snacks and stuff. Then we'd hop back on the bus, and it would take you back to Canton. And that was quite a deal back in the day,
Yeah.
because ghost hunting until 4 or 5 in the morning. I think it was 5 o'clock there for a while. You get tired, and then that's a 2-hour drive back to
Yeah.
the Canton area, so you could
Right.
sleep on the bus.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it was perfect, and I would do 10 or 12 of those a year
Oh, wow.
to the penitentiary alone. So I'm a big proponent of the buses, because they can be a lot of fun. We'd watch a lot
Yeah.
of paranormal documentaries on the bus, and we talk and share ghost stories and stuff like that. So I love it.
nice.
It sounds amazing. I think the Cryptic Paranormal Show needs to hit the road on one of these
Right?
tours and check it out.
You should.
Gettysburg is on my bucket list. I
Yeah.
gotta go there.
Is it? Well, how far do you live from Canton?
I live in Stowe, so not
Yeah.
not horribly far, like 40 minutes maybe.
45 minutes away. You could hop on that bus. You could be
Oh,
on
yeah.
that party bus to Gettysburg. You can sit up front with me.
Oh, awesome. VIP.
Well, I don't know about that.
That'd be
But
fun though.
it is.
But-
It's a lot of fun getting those like-minded people together,
Yeah.
and people that are afraid to talk about this to their coworkers or their family. They really open up because they see other people digging the same thing that they like too. And I mean, there's everything from school teachers that go on those tours to, like I said, grandparents,
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
professional people, housewives. I hate the word housewife. Domestic goddesses.
There you go.
You have to talk to people.
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh.
it's a lot of
No.
fun. I like to
Never mind.
educate. I like to enlighten. I like to entertain. I heard. I love all
I think
that.
he meant.
love-
I think he meant himself personally. Does he have to talk to people?
Yeah.
He's
Well,
a
you
great
wouldn't have-
listener, but he doesn't like to talk to people.
You could put on your headphones and take a nap
There
on
you
the
go.
bus. You don't have to talk to people.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about the paranormal. You know, there's just, you get a group together of 20 people and there's like so many different backgrounds and different jobs that people do. And, you know, it's just a cool, I don't know, smorgasbord of people.
It's a lot of fun. You know, I moved from Ohio to West Virginia about 14 years ago, and our high school here in West Virginia has a paranormal group that you can
What?
join. It's a
Wow,
paranormal club
Yeah, that's
for
cool.
That's
junior,
cool.
senior high kids, and they meet once a month in the auditorium. And they had me come and speak a couple of times to them, which was a blast.
Yeah.
Nice.
The one time they were getting ready to do a field trip to the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum as a school activity.
Wow.
That is awesome.
Wow.
How cool is that? And I
Yeah,
just
that's
happened.
amazing.
I wrote a book on the Trans-Allegheny, so I was able to go and you know, do a little slideshow for them and give them a little you know, backstory on what they were going to be experiencing and what they
That's
might
so
see
cool.
and, you know, the history on it. So I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Education.
Yeah. It was who, Heather Taddy maybe?
I
Mm-hmm.
just talked to her yesterday on the phone.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
I
wow.
freaking love her.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
She's a great.
I
Great
am
But-
gonna. We're talking about she's gonna come to Ireland with me and do an Ireland tour in 2025.
Nice.
Wow.
She's gonna be a special guest. So
Nice.
cat's
Awesome.
bag.
Perfect.
And
Perfect for
I
that.
interrupted you. What were you gonna say, Denise, about Heather?
She was doing a speech one time and she said that she loves the paranormal because it tricks the young kids into realizing that history is cool.
Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah.
Being that Civil War reenactor, many times the fourth grade or the fifth or the sixth grade teachers, even when I was in Stark County, they would have me come in and talk Civil War history to the kids. And I'd wear
Yeah.
my period attire and they'd dim the lights in the auditorium. And I'd have that candle lit, you know, that lantern, and I'd start telling them history. But I threw in
Yeah.
enough gory, bloody ghost stories that they were digging it.
Yeah.
And it kind of like lit a spark because a lot of kids came up to me afterwards. They're like, I didn't like history. And what you
Yeah.
told me, I really want to find out more about that.
Yeah.
So that's a
Yeah,
cool
we
thing.
have I'm sure you've probably heard of it up here in Conneaut. They do a D-Day reenactment and they
Cool.
set up all of the different camps and everybody's, you know, in full attire and, you know, they do a camp for each country and you can walk up to any person and they will be completely in character the entire time. And you can ask them questions like, what was your job during the war?
Yeah.
Where did you sleep? What did you
Yes.
eat? You
So
know,
cool.
and they will answer questions. And we take our kids every year and they love it.
That's the best thing. My kids often say that one of the things they loved about like little family trips we did was when we reenacted because we did it as a family. My husband was a Confederate reenactor. Sometimes I would play a nurse on the battlefield. Sometimes I would be a bushwhacker. It just depended on what the scenario was. Sometimes I would be a lady of the night.
Nice.
That's another story. Just got to play all types during reenactments, right?
Yeah.
But
I've never heard that term. Can you explain that for me?
Yeah,
More,
a soiled dove.
Oh, okay, I got you.
But my kids loved it because they had to be in period attire.
Yeah.
No toys. No, you know, little electronics back in the day. My kids are, my gosh, my kids are 31 and 29 now, but they loved it. They played with marbles. They had little plain baby dolls. They would take slingshots. They just had a blast doing it, and they loved being in character, and I loved it as well. It was like escapism. I mean, you could
Yeah.
actually go on a battlefield on a Saturday
Yeah.
and kill somebody and then go
Yeah.
back to work on Monday. And,
Right.
you know, everything was
I
great.
would love it. I would absolutely love it. I'm
It
the
was a
same guy that
blast.
would work a hunt. I would do all that kind of stuff. I love that kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Zor in Tuscarawas
Yeah.
County, Zor Village, Ohio. Okay, they
Yeah.
close down the streets there, and they do a Civil War reenactment every other year. And
Oh,
one
cool.
of the old historical buildings, they turn it into a house of prostitution. So out on the front porch are these scantily clad ladies in corsets and pantaloons, and some of them are out there smoking cigars, and they're like yelling at the soldiers, you know.
Oh,
And my
wow.
kids are just like gawking, and I'm covering up their eyes.
Right? That's
Calling
amazing.
up my husband, come on in here, soldier boy. I mean, it's just, you know, it's a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
it's a great fun for the kids and the adults as well. And
Yeah.
that really
Yeah.
helped me with some of my investigations because we would do Confederate Memorial Day at Johnson's
Yeah.
Island, which is on Sandusky Bay, right outside of Sandusky. And it was a Civil War prison and it's a cemetery for
Okay.
prisoners of war there, Southern prisoners of war. There's over 200 that are buried there. And
Wow.
our job the night before Confederate Memorial Day was we had to guard the cemetery. And we would all take turns marching around the cemetery on the exterior just out of
Oh.
honoring and memorializing the dead
Yeah.
there. But you could also take your ghost hunting equipment
Wow.
and hang out there as well. So I combined the two quite often. And it's very interesting. Johnson's Island is a very cool place to investigate, you know,
Yeah.
even during the day. You've got a lot
Yeah.
of unmarked graves up there,
Mhm.
a lot of unrest in that
Yeah.
cemetery. So, and a lot of graves that aren't plainly marked. They just
Yeah.
threw the bodies everywhere up
Yeah.
there. We had ground penetrating radar done to back up some
Oh, wow.
of our stories that we believed, mass burials. And you know,
Yeah.
when you look at these old Victorian cemeteries, everybody's buried so nicely, one after the other, and all the headstones are all lined up and everything is symmetrical. And then you
Yeah.
go in there with ground penetrating radar and you see bodies that are buried crisscrossed and by the flagpole and by the gate and outside of the fence and just
Oh, wow.
everywhere.
Wow.
I could see where there would be some unrest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me, like growing up and like even in like history, growing up in high school, you you learn about the Civil War, but you hear about the things that happen like on the East Coast or like Gettysburg or down south. There's so much of that history that's right here in Ohio that
Yeah,
they don't
very
really
much
teach about
so.
the battles of Ohio.
Yeah, and there is actually an island in the Ohio River, and we never learned about it growing up in high school or anything, but it's called Buffington Island. And there was a skirmish that was fought there, and you never hear about that. You never hear about
Mhm.
Buffington Island, and you never really I never heard anything about Johnson's Island, you know, until I
Yeah.
got older and I found out I had a fourth great grandfather that was held there as a prisoner of war. He
Oh,
was a
wow.
political
Wow.
prisoner and he was held there and wrote letters home, and we have copies of his letters. But that made it all more personal for me to go
Sure.
up there and walk around on those graves and know that he was there in 1862, and he was
Yeah.
60 years old when they put him
Wow.
up there. He was not an enlisted
Wow.
man. He was the sheriff of the county down here, and he didn't want to take up arms. He just wanted to defend his county that he was
Yeah.
sheriff of. And
Right.
Union troops came in and arrested him, and they took him to Johnson's Island, and then they took him to Camp Chase in Columbus, which is another
Oh,
big
okay.
Civil War site in the state of
Yeah.
Ohio with a lot of folklore and a lot of haunted stories about Camp Chase. You have over 2,000 Confederates that are buried there on
Wow.
Sullivan Avenue in Columbus. So that's another place to go investigate, you know, if you're really into
Yeah.
Civil War and you live in the state of Ohio.
Yeah, that's good to
That's
know.
really
That's
cool.
yeah.
hmm
So I grew up loving watching. I mean, I watched the series. I don't know how many times, the documentaries on PBS, all that stuff. I loved it.
Ken
And
Burns, probably the Ken
yeah,
Burns one is
yeah,
great. Well
yeah,
done.
yeah, yeah. I just
Very
loved
well
and just the narration. You kind of really got the feeling of how these people were feeling during the war and the whole thing. It's just
Yeah.
And I even appreciate it way more now that, I understand the emotion behind it. But, I haven't been to Gettysburg since I was probably, I don't know,
Oh,
12.
to
It's,
go. You need to hop on that bus.
yeah.
Lee.
Yeah. So, what are some of the other places in Ohio that you find most interesting? Because I know there's a ton. I mean, Ohio is the most haunted state in the United States.
I don't know, dude, because here in West Virginia, we
I know.
got some stuff going on down here.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sandwiched in between. To my west, I've got the Mothman.
Yeah.
To the north, of course, I have Trans-Allegheny and the West Virginia
Mhm.
Pen
Oh,
and
wow.
the Braxton County Green Monster. And then to my south, I've got the Greenbrier Ghost. And then I've
Oh.
got all these coal mine ghost stories all around here.
Mhm.
And I live on an old coal mine site.
Oh, wow.
So we've had eight documented coal mine deaths here on our farm.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's weirdness all around. But yeah, Ohio's up there. I mean, you could look at the popular ones, like you always hear Ohio State Reformatory.
Yeah.
Probably rented that out 50, 60 times over
Oh,
the
wow.
years. I've done overnight ghost hunts there, rented it out. I've also do a death by desert ghost hunt. I also led some of their paranormal classes there as their paranormal teacher, I guess, for lack of a better word. For 2 years, I did that and trained a couple hundred ghost hunters. So that was kind of cool to do for
That
them.
is
Yeah.
cool.
They asked me to do that. That was a big
Yeah.
deal to be asked by a prison. It's always funny when you can go to prison and leave that day.
Right. And be excited about it.
Yeah.
It's a win-win. So yeah, so Ohio State Reformatory, of course, up there,
Yeah.
legendary
Yeah.
haunt. Then you've got places that are lesser known. You've got Prospect Place in Dresden. You've
Yeah.
got there's 23 crybaby bridges
Yeah.
in the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
So that's
Wow.
always a cool story, the folklore,
Yeah.
because all the stories pretty much are the same. Then you've got Franklin Castle.
Mhm.
You've got, oh gosh, there's so many. Zor Village is a great one. There's 5 or 6 buildings down there that are extremely active.
That Zor Village is another hotspot I'd love to just visit.
Yeah,
But what I
I
don't
rent the
know is
town.
like, why is it the Civil War connection, or is there something else
Oh
going on
no.
there?
Well, the Civil War is just one small part of it.
Yeah.
The coolest thing, because I rent the entire village out when I do the
Wow.
ghost hunts, which is
That's
kind of
awesome.
cool. I get 5 buildings. They give me
That's
5 of the
amazing.
historical buildings to step into, which is pretty cool. But it was started in 1813, I think, 1817, right around there. There was a woman in Switzerland who could put herself into a trance. Her name was Barbara Gruberman. And she was like the leader of this group of people. They were separatists from the Church of Germany. They had their own religion. They didn't want to
Mhm.
follow the Church of Germany, so they made their own little religion up. And they were persecuted for their beliefs. They were beaten in public. Husbands and wives were taken apart from each other, and they basically had to go into hiding because of their religious beliefs. And Barbara Gruberman could put herself into a trance and envision them collectively going by ship across the ocean
Yeah.
to the United States and coming here and starting their own spiritual community.
Wow.
And
Wow.
she had the name
Sounds
Zor.
like a cult leader.
Yes. And she was ill to
Yeah.
they don't tell you that in the general daytime tour at Zor.
Right.
You got to do a little bit of digging.
Yeah.
But she was too ill to make the trip. So there was another man who was made kind of like the father of the spiritual community. They crossed the ocean. It took them a couple of months. They came by wagon with horse and ox, and cart, the whole thing. And they came to Tuscarawas County. So they settled about half an hour south of Canton. And they named their community Zor after the, it's biblical, Sodom. Do you remember that story? Anybody here into Bible stories? They
Oh my God, it
fled.
was so long ago. It was so force fed to me. I think I
Yes, they
just forget
fled
on purpose.
from a location of prostitution and worshiping false idols and all this to another location that was called Zor. So it was like their place of refuge. So that's where
Okay.
the name came from, is place of refuge. And they started their own community. They built their cabins. They had a place that they could make their bricks. They had sawmills. They had a dairy farm. They had gardens, and they survived in the wilderness. And they made this community of, I don't know, a couple hundred people. And they followed their spiritualistic father. So they weren't allowed to go out into the community. It kind of reminds you of the Amish or the Mennonite. So
Or
they
Jim
were very
Jones.
they were
Yeah.
they were very close knit. They were dependent upon each other. I know that even one time there was a law of celibacy that was enacted for like 6 years. They did
Wow.
not want women getting pregnant because that would hamper their ability to work in the fields.
Oh, okay.
And children would be taken from the parents at about age 2 and kept until like 13 or 14 in one of 2 buildings that were like a daycare of sorts, like a nursery for the kids, so that both parents could be out working in the fields and doing whatever they needed to do. So fast forward, this community survived until they built the Zor Hotel. The Zor Hotel is one of the most haunted buildings in the town. But when they built this hotel, it drew in outsiders. So you had all these people coming into town now, flashing their money, looking beautiful. The ladies had perfume. They wore bonnets. President McKinley went there. You know, so it was a very fancy schmancy place. And a lot of these younger kids that were Zorites saw all this money coming in, and they started to see the outside world. So they started to get tempted with leaving the society. And then flash forward a few years, the Zorites think that that building is cursed because not too long after they built it, people started leaving. There are all kinds of things that happened. It didn't become a very popular place then because the old folks were aging even more. The young folks were wanting to get out of Dodge. And they ended up disbanding. But there are some buildings there. I will tell you what, I've had more activity in the bakery, which doesn't sound like an exciting place. The bakery and
That's
the
exciting to me.
more than I've had at, I'll say, Waverly Hills. I'll put that in there.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Phenomenal. And there's been so many people that have come and investigated with me. They're like, this place is ridiculous. It like knocks your socks off. Now, not every night does it do stuff like that, but enough that you take note. And I think it's because of the reason it was founded. It was a spiritualistic community, and they believed so much in their doctrine and in their rules and in their regulations and the way that they lived, that that energy just hangs out there.
Yeah.
So Zor Village, if you ever get a chance, even just
I
do a
need to
day.
go there now. Yeah.
Yeah, even do a day tour there and check it out. Or I don't have any events there booked this year. Last year I think I did 3 late nights. We were there from 8 until 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And just got to roam at will throughout the town and investigate in the buildings. So, and it helps them out because they need funds. You know, they're just like any other historical society needing funds for the upkeep of these buildings.
Oh, yeah.
How do you spell that? I'm going to put it in the comments.
ZOAR, Zor.
Okay.
I always think Zool when I see it on the roads. I'm like,
Zool.
Zor.
Yeah, I mean, I've always read about it, but it's always like around Halloween, and it's just this village in Tuscarawas is haunted, and you know they just interview a couple people, but I never heard the actual history behind it.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than that. There's some other things that have happened in town there, but it's just really cool. There's people that walk past that Zor Hotel that hear babies crying inside.
Wow.
They hear the sound of parties happening because the Zor Hotel was a very elite place to celebrate. So there would be, champagne. You could hear champagne glasses clinking and music playing, and just a cool place to explore.
That's crazy.
Those rich ghosts just waving it at everybody's face.
Yeah.
Look at us. Clink, clink.
The rumor had it that President McKinley would take his mistress there.
Oh,
I wouldn't doubt it.
I wouldn't doubt it either.
Who knows?
yeah,
What
he's a
better
Canton
place
boy.
than a little
What better
obscure
place?
town?
Yeah, another weird thing about the Zor Hotel is on the very top floor is where the workers would be housed in this,
Yeah.
I think it's 4 stories high. And there is a massive door that is probably 50 inches wide with bars on it and a lock. And the story goes that the female workers would be locked into that room at night so they could not come out and mingle with any of the hotel guests.
No
Wow.
kidding. Wow.
Yeah. So
So who are the workers then? Like they're just not good enough to be town people, or what?
they're the Zorites. They're the women and the teenagers, that lived in that village. Every house had a number. House number 1, house number 2, house number 3.
Oh wow.
And you had to pull your weight. And you had to work in the society, you had to work in the fields, you had to maybe work in the bakery. If you were male, maybe you worked in the tin shop, or you made bricks, or you worked out in the field. So everybody contributed, and some of the ladies would have to be wait staff or cooks or do the laundry. And this was a very large building. So if you were young and you weren't married, then you would stay there on site, and that would be your room. It was a large room with a
Wow.
big door
Wow.
and a lock.
I was gonna say, but they
Oh.
lock it up.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's so wild.
Didn't want you wandering off in the middle of the night.
No. That's we were
So
such
does
a
this
messed
place
up
do like
society.
day tours?
They do, and the staff is wonderful down there. And sometimes, I mean, if it's a really small group that's on your tour, you can ask the tour guide some questions, about the haunted history. And most of them know me down there, and they'll tell you a little bit about it. But those tours are supposed to be history based, and they're wonderful tours. It's like, I don't know, $7 or $8 to take a daytime tour, and it gets you
Nice.
into several of the buildings. The guides are dressed in period attire.
Love it.
And at the bakery, a lot of the times they'll be baking some of the original, the old recipes from the Zorite time, and they sell their bread there, and it's just an amazing little
That's so
historical village.
cool.
It's such a cool place to check out.
Did you write a book on that one?
No, but one of my good friends did. Deborah Robinson wrote Haunted Tuscaroras County.
Okay.
And she's got like Dover and New Philadelphia, and then she's got Zor, and Schönbrunn Village is not too far away from there, and also Fort Lawrence. If you're into Revolutionary War history in the state of Ohio, Fort Lawrence is probably 3 miles away and worth a trip, because there are soldiers' bodies buried in the walls of the museum.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
Holy
I don't
cow.
think they tell you that on the day tour either.
That's why everybody, you have to go on SHERRI's tours.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a very interesting place. It's a big part of Ohio's history
Yeah.
during the Revolutionary War and even before. So, and I think we covered Fort Lawrence in like 5 sentences in school. We didn't talk too much about
Yeah.
it.
Right.
And the Shawnees were pretty smart. They encircled that fort, and there were militia there from Virginia as well as Ohio and Pennsylvania. They encircled that fort, and they basically starved out those soldiers. They were there for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it got to the point where the soldiers were taking their shoes off and boiling their shoes in water to drink the broth that
Oh
had
my
the leather
gosh.
of the shoes in it. And the Shawnee were pretty smart.
Yeah.
They starved them out. People would try to sneak out to try to find food and stuff, and they would be killed. They'd be scalped. And the Shawnee also got a hold of some of the horses of the soldiers, and they took them out in the woods, and they were like waving the little bells from their necks, and the soldiers came out thinking their horses had escaped, and then they were massacred by the Shawnee.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, and there's a few
Baited.
unmarked graves there. Yeah, and some of the soldiers ended up in the walls of the museum. So that's another fascinating place to go explore and do when you
Wow.
guys make it over to Zor.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool.
It is cool.
I mean, what was it intentional? Like, did they? That's how they buried them. The
Oh
soldiers
yeah.
in the
Oh,
wall.
you mean the soldiers in the walls?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. There's also the tomb of the unknown patriot soldier that is out front. It's got a beautiful. It's not really a sarcophagus. It's just a tomb that's
Okay.
out there that's decorated, and they hold Memorial Day services there for that soldier. And then there are other soldiers that are still interred in the ground, and they're just simply marked by flat stones.
Huh.
Huh.
But Kent State went there in the 70s, I think it was, and they did an archaeological dig, and they exhumed some of the bodies, and they were able to tell with the bodies that they exhumed whether that Native American was right-handed or left-handed by the way the hatchet went into the brain.
Wow.
Oh, geez.
Or the axe or whatever it was that they
Yeah.
used, because of the way that it swung in.
Right.
And I remember seeing some of the photographs, because they had them online. You could look at Kent State and see some of the photos from the archaeological dig, and it was pretty fascinating that they could determine, if that was a
Right.
right-handed Indian or a left-handed Indian or a tomahawk. That's what the word I was
Yeah.
looking for.
Wow.
Wow.
Words evade me sometimes,
Speaking of words, let's say that someone only has enough to buy one of your books. Which one would you tell them to get?
Well, if they don't have that much money, they need to email me, and then I give them a free one. Because I'm like that.
Just-
I love the karma
Just
thing.
hypothetically.
Hypothetically, I would say, well, my bestseller is The Haunted History of the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. That is my bestseller on Amazon.
Okay.
So that's an easy read.
What's
your favorite book, though?
Geez, that's hard because they're like my babies. Yeah, I've got like over 20 that are published. Some of them are like ghost hunting journals and dream journals and things like that. But the big ones on the haunted locations, it's hard to pick because
What was
I'm
your
a prison.
favorite to write?
Oh gosh. Well, it would have to be the very first book that I self-published was 590 some pages. And it was The Haunted History of the West Virginia Penitentiary in
Okay.
Moundsville. It's like that thick.
Wow.
It's so heavy.
Wow.
It weighs over 2 pounds. I will never write a book that big again because you have to carry these books to events
Yeah.
and to book
Right.
signings to sell. I'll never do it again. It's so big you can use it as a doorstop. It's that large. But yeah, that was a delight to write because I had no publishing company hanging over my head.
Yeah.
My first 2 books were published with Arcadia and the History Press, and they gave me 28,000 words and 20 images, not a word more, no
Wow.
pictures, 20. And I'm like, I can't do
Yeah.
that because
Yeah.
I like to use adjectives. I like to be descriptive. I like to,
Right.
It's hard to tell a ghost story if you're only allowed to use 30 words.
Yeah.
Right.
So when I got to do The Haunted History of the West Virginia Pen, I was like on, I don't know what I was on. I would write 10,000 words a day. I mean, I was just going to town.
Nice.
Not only with the knowledge of what the pen is and the history, but having hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people ghost hunt with me. And then afterwards, they would write to me, they would email me, they would send me photographs, they would send me audio, and I printed everything out. And I kept all of these stories that these people told me. So when it
That's
was
awesome.
time to do that book, I picked 100 stories and put them in the second half of the book. So the first
that's
half is
cool.
history. The second half is actual investigations and stories from staff, from inmates as well, from people who worked there years ago, and from ghost hunters. So that was
That's
probably,
cool.
yeah, that was a big baby to birth.
Yeah. You're like, never again.
Yeah,
Right.
no, my books are a little smaller now, a little lighter.
Sorry. Roscoe's pretending like he's a guard dog.
Oh yeah.
Have you guys been to West Virginia? Have you done anything Mothman related?
No.
No, another thing that's on. I've been to West Virginia Penn.
Yeah, me
I
too.
think
Yeah,
two,
I see you've
two,
got Steve
two
Hummel's
times.
shirt on.
Yeah. He's a good friend of mine. Actually, the second time I was there, he's the one who gave us a tour.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Steve gave
I
a lot of my tours there. I've known him for a
Yeah.
long time.
The very first time I was there, I was definitely surprised by the amount of activity. I don't know why I say that, but just I always front load with what I see on TV and like go in like not expecting what they have, what they caught on the TV shows, obviously, because they're there several days and they edit and put everything together. But for like that one night, it was crazy. It was just so much activity. The second time, it was the Paranormal Challenge, one of Zach Baggins shows. They had it all set up. There was a bunch of rooms we
Right.
couldn't go into. It just didn't feel right. Like it almost felt like they were hiding. Like they just, they knew it was about to happen, and they're just like, no, we're good. But the
Yeah.
Mothman is something I've read a lot about. I mean, I've read Mothman, the Mothman. Oh my gosh, I'm losing the
Prophecy?
word.
John Keel.
Prophecies.
Mothman
Yes, thank you.
Prophecies.
Yeah.
John Keel. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've led tours to Mothman Country. I've done private tours. There was a couple of car clubs in Ohio. They wanted to drive all their classic cars to
Yeah.
Point Pleasant. And I was like the mother duck. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? I got like 30.
Yeah.
Well, the one time it was MGs, the little tiny cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm driving this big ass SUV. I'm like the mother duck. And I planned the whole weekend for them. We stayed at the Low Hotel, which was haunted. We did Jeff
Yeah.
Walmsley's Mothman Museum. He met with
cool.
us and got to talk to everybody and sign books. And we did a dinner there at one of the restaurants, and we did a haunted walk through town. And then in the evening, of course, everybody wanted to go out to where Mothman was originally sighted, which is just a few miles north of town,
Mm-hmm.
up in the wilds, out in the middle of nowhere where these
Yeah.
bunkers are at. So here I am driving through town with about 30 MGs behind me, trying to get through all the lights and not lose anybody,
Right.
And then if you know anything about MGs, somebody's always got like a water pump or a fuel pump or
sure.
something that's going, and they're pulling off to fix cars left and right because they all carry spare parts. I mean, these people really die.
Yeah.
So they're like, let's go out to the TNT area where Mothman was first seen at night. And I'm like, well, it's hundreds of acres. You guys got to stay like right on my butt because you can't get lost up there. There are so many roads that crisscross. I mean, if you look at a Google Earth of it, it's like runways out there and none of the roads have names on them. So don't leave me because you're going to get lost. And it's crazy up there. So everybody got up there with me and we walked the path and they're like, oh, this is really cool. We're getting out in the middle of nowhere and we're going to go in these underground bunkers. And then people started getting really nervous because we were there's no city lights and there's nothing but dense underbrush around you and rhododendron brush and pine trees. And there's these sediment ponds, out there. And there's these bunkers that are covered by grapevines and tree branches. And they're like, do you know where you're going? And I'm like, yeah, I know where I'm going. And we take them into the bunker and they're like, we're done. We're good. We want to go back to the hotel. I'm like, we've been here 2 minutes.
Yeah.
They're like, we've seen enough because you're freaking us out.
There's too many stars out here.
Yeah, everybody got back in their MGs and we went back into town. But
you didn't say anything about nature.
Nature.
Oh my God. Oh yeah. Yes. And there was a few bus tours. I had some Mothman prophecy tours that I led down there.
Yeah.
Point Pleasant, I describe it as Mayberry, Andrew Griffith Mayberry meets the Twilight Zone. If the two intermingled and had a baby, it's Point Pleasant.
That's awesome. That's a good description.
It's trippy. It's an old river town. Legend is that it was cursed by Chief Cornstalk in October 7th of 1777. the year of the 777s, because he was murdered under a white flag of truce, and allegedly, I love these, allegedly, he cursed the entire town of Point Pleasant.
Okay.
So you have coal mine disasters, you have river floods, you have the demise of the town, because when they built the new highway and the new bridge, it bypassed downtown. So you had a lot of businesses closing up. Then you had the fall of the Silver Bridge in 1967. So, and then you have the Mothman. You have the Bigfoot sightings. You have the UFO sightings. My cousin, he lived in Cottageville, West Virginia, which is just a few miles away from Point Pleasant. He says he remembers in the 60s when groups of them would get in cars and they would drive to Point Pleasant and they would park along the banks of the Ohio River, and they would get out and they would sit in the dark with their flashlights, and they would flash the beams up at these craft that would come in and just hover, and they would flash their lights at them and they would get return signals back.
Wow.
There is a lot more than just Mothman going on in that town.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you think Mothman is? Is it more of a cryptid, or do you think it's more of an alien life form?
Well, there were hundreds of people that had documented sightings.
Yeah.
School teachers, pilots, law enforcement, the everyday Joe down the road, women, men, kids, everybody saw this winged creature. There's so many different theories with it, and here's the thing: is nobody really knows. There's speculation that it was a big bird, that it was a loon or a crane, a sandhill crane or something like that. Speculation that maybe it was a man who had gotten in there into one of those munition bunkers, and had gotten into some chemicals and kind of morphed into this crazy creature.
Yeah.
Then you've got the Mothman, the cryptid. Possibly he's interdimensional. He comes and he goes, like Bigfoot or like aliens. So I don't know. I just know that there were hundreds of people who swore that they saw this creature and described it pretty much the same as everybody else. And a lot of people never wanted to talk about it after they came forward.
Right.
Because the ridicule and the harassment that they got for telling the truth or telling what they saw.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of sadness in that town too. A lot of people lost somebody when that bridge collapsed. There was 46 people who were killed in the crash of the Silver Bridge. Wow. And it happened just a week before Christmas. One of the local restaurant owners, she was a wonderful person. Her name was Carolyn Harris. She had Harris's Diner right there, just a few blocks from the bridge. And she told me, she said, I remember that night, my husband and my son were coming back from Ohio, and they were crossing that bridge, and they were killed when that bridge collapsed.
Wow.
And she said, when that bridge collapsed into that icy water, she said it shook the entire town, felt the reverberation of that bridge collapsing. And she said, I lost my boy and I lost my husband.
Ugh,
so
that's terrible.
Yeah, stories like that. And then you hear the crazy stories of, Mothman visiting and sitting out, in a tree above somebody's home, washing dishes, and they look out the window and they see it sitting up there, and they see the red eyes and the big wings, and then it just flops and then just takes off. So it's a town of history and a town of mystery. Both.
Yeah.
Place to check out.
Yeah. It seems like it's got kind of that soup of activity, like with all, like you said, Bigfoot, the bunkers I've read about and heard about, and know people who have seen what they described as Nordic aliens.
Oh no, not them again.
Yeah.
Encounter with that. I mean, it's so crazy. I would love just like to spend a week there and just explore.
If you guys ever plan a trip, give me a heads up. I'll meet you there. I'll be your personal tour guide. Seriously.
Awesome. Wow.
I love that town. I was a speaker at the Mothman Festival for
probably
5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I loved it. I love that town. And I think, you know what I really think causes all of this activity, the UFOs, the Bigfoot, the
Mhm.
Mothman, all that. I think there's ley lines. I think there's ley lines that run through that Ohio River Valley. And
Okay.
I think that LEY, not LAY. I think that
Yeah,
that
yeah.
invisible lines of earth energy and stuff. I'm sure you
Mhm.
guys know all about
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that I think areas that have the ley lines running through it attracts the ancient civilizations even as well. The mound builders
Mhm.
could feel that energy,
Yeah.
so they would build mounds
Sure.
throughout the area.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that it acts like a battery, an earth battery, and it
Okay.
Yeah, that makes
fuels
sense.
stuff. If something's going to happen, you've got that earth energy that's running in
Yeah.
lines that's constantly charging it. The West Virginia Penitentiary is another
Mhm.
example because directly across the street is the
Yeah.
Grave Creek Mound, built
Right.
by the mound builders dating
Mhm.
back over 2,000 years ago. They sensed that energy and they
Mhm.
built their mound on it. So you've got the pen one block over, not
Right.
even a block over, basically across the street. So my theory is, and I talk about this in my haunted history book of the pen, is that I think that that line of energy is what's fueling the pen because ley lines can be a couple of feet in width. They can be 100 feet.
Right.
Stonehenge is another
Right.
one. The Tower of London. All these places that I traveled to in Ireland and Scotland. Rosslyn Chapel. If you're familiar with the Da Vinci Code
Mhm.
and that
Mhm.
line of energy that runs right through the chapel, the ancient people, old timers, they could feel that energy. Even then, our Native American Indians could feel it. It was good medicine to
I
them.
feel
And then
like
it was
they
bad medicine, if you got the crisscross of the energy, you got the
Mhm.
vortex.
I feel like they probably could feel everything better because they're not surrounded by all the different
Yeah,
energies that we have going on all the time, you know?
everything.
Yeah.
EMF, the EMF is crazy. If
Right.
people would take an EMF meter and walk around their house and see what they're exposed to,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
by their
Right.
I remember doing an investigation in Ohio 30 almost 30 years ago, and it was a husband and wife who complained of not being able to sleep. They
Mhm.
thought that they were hallucinating. They argued a lot, and they just felt like something was going on in their house. When I investigated their bedroom, do you remember those old clock radios? Those
Yep.
big.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
he
They
had
put them
one.
right by the bed.
She had one right at
Right. Yeah.
right up by their head. So when I walked
Mhm.
in that room with the EMF meter, I immediately went up there and it pegged it both
Oh, yeah.
sides. And I said, and I explained what the meter was. Talked about electromagnetic
Yeah.
frequencies, fields, and the negative impact they can have on the human body.
Mhm.
And I said, just as an experiment, I think all your problems in this house are caused by these radios. And they looked at me like I was
Right.
Yeah.
nuts. I said, take them out of the
Yeah.
room for one
Mhm.
week
Yeah.
and then call me back. And the headaches went away. They
Yeah.
slept better. They weren't snippy with each other. And they said it was like night and day. And I said, well, you were basically sleeping 8 hours a day next to enough EMF,
Right.
to cause
Yeah.
headaches and ill
Yeah.
Right.
health and ability and everything like
Yeah.
that. So the people
Yeah.
That
don't
stuff
realize.
is yeah,
Those
that stuff is
clock
nasty.
radios
Like
are
even
notorious for it.
yeah, clock radios, ceiling fans are horrible.
Ceiling
I
fans, hair dryers,
yeah,
computers, laptops,
yeah,
TVs,
Right.
refrigerators,
yeah. I worked a
Right.
case.
modems.
The little girl, the whole family's experiencing things all around the house, but this little girl, she was waking up with night terrors and horrible um headaches, like you had explained. And you know, at this point, I was with a certain group. We already knew exactly what we were going to be looking for right away. Um, So yeah, at the head of her bed, she had clock radio. She had a old ceiling fan right above her bed. At the foot of her bed, she had a TV, a VCR, and a game console. And right outside her window was an ungrounded wire coming
Transform.
up, yeah, to
Yeah.
the transformer. And I've never seen my EMF detectors spike so bad. I'm like, this is what's happening. I
Yeah.
mean, she is literally in an EMF cage and she's
Yeah.
soaking all this in, and it's not good for her. You got to get rid of
Yeah.
all this stuff. I mean, ceiling fan, okay. I'm a guy who always needs the fan going, but you know,
Or move the bed a little bit.
yeah, something.
Right.
Get rid of the TV because kids don't
Oh,
need that in their room. But,
definitely. For many years, I've been a dowser. I'm a member of the American Society of Dowsers. So I've instructed classes on everything from EVP to spirit photography,
Mhm.
and my love is dowsing.
Okay.
So I've instructed classes on how safe is your house? You know, are you
Yeah.
seeing ghosts? How safe is your house, though? So
Mhm.
and we
Right.
talk about what is healthy in a house. Sometimes you know you get I'll get phone calls and parents will be like, "There's something haunting my child. They just started wetting the bed and doing all this crazy
Oh,
behavior." And I'm like, "Okay, well, let's douse the entire building. Let's douse outside. Let's douse
yeah.
inside." And chances are their bed is in the wrong position. You know, if you've got
Right.
a ley line running through a house of any type and you've got a bed on top of it, it can cause
Mhm.
illness. It can cause
Mhm.
insomnia. It can cause a child to wet the bed. And something as simple as moving the bed off of that
Yeah.
ley line to another area can change it overnight.
Right.
Overnight. And it works. It works 90% of
Yeah.
the time.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's amazing just by the use of dowsing rods what you can accomplish and find the
Mhm.
healthy places for people to have their beds because we're in a bed 8-9 hours a night if we're lucky,
Right.
Yeah.
and that's supposed to be a healthy time, but it's not if you're situated over top of something that's crazy. And there's things to look out for in your house. I mean, there's signs
Mhm.
that you've got a line of energy, a negative line of energy running through your house, a break in your sidewalk outside the house, or a break in your concrete patio.
Mhm.
Places where ants gather are places of negative energy. It's the most
Yeah.
bizarre thing.
That is
The
weird.
placement where cats will sleep, you know, because animals are so sensitive to energy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And sometimes even with a baby in a crib, they will gravitate in the bed to a certain position all the time in that bed. They're
Yeah.
getting away from that negative energy that's crossing because they've got that natural ability to wiggle away and to
Mhm.
sense something when they're not comfortable. And they'll always go
Mhm.
over to one corner or the other corner and get away from where that line of energy
Yeah.
runs through the bed. Fascinating thing in the United Kingdom is they've actually done studies on cancers and EMF in bedrooms and lines of energy
Oh wow.
running through a bedroom where a line of energy is running through the bed and the exact area that where it crosses the woman sleeps and she has breast cancer or
Mhm.
uterine cancer,
Wow.
Oh wow.
and the incidence of that happening in a certain amount of square miles. I mean, it's
Mhm.
fascinating. UK is so far ahead of anything here in the States
Yeah.
with studies like that on lines of energy. It's crazy.
Well,
Yeah.
because they're
Fascinating.
open-minded. I mean, anytime something is
Yeah.
mentioned like that here in the United States, it's immediately shut down as like horse shit. You know, like,
Right.
oh,
Right.
that's witchcraft.
Yeah.
Tom
Dark
Fuller
They're
you
magic.
were talking
science.
about.
Dowsing is amazing, and you can use it for so many different applications. It's just not ghost hunting or investigating. I mean, you can find your
Mhm.
septic tank, you can
Right.
find the edge
Yeah.
of a burial vault in a cemetery,
Yeah.
you can find
Yeah.
unmarked
Water
graves, you can
lines.
How does that
water
work?
Mhm.
all kinds of
What?
stuff.
I said, how
It's
does it
amazing.
work? I don't understand.
Magic.
Nobody knows how it works.
Yeah.
Science gives it the term of ratathesia, which is just a fancy way of saying we don't. It's bullshit. We don't know how it works. But nobody knows. Nobody knows. It's just I can tell you that I can douse the property and
Mhm.
find water. I can find
Yeah.
underground water.
Mhm.
I can tell you which way it's flowing. I can tell you how deep it
Mhm.
is. I can
Yeah.
tell you how many gallons per minute.
Yeah.
And there are people who pay money for that. I never take
Oh yeah.
money.
Yeah.
But as a pioneer in the day, that's a valuable resource to have. Or out
Oh
in the
yeah.
desert, out west, they
Yeah.
still use dowsers to
Mhm.
find water. It's more
Yeah.
cost effective than bringing in a drill and
Yeah.
drilling for it. So
Yeah.
nobody knows how it works. It just
Yeah.
works. It's the power of intent.
Mhm.
It's not that the rods are magic or blessed or anything glorious
Mhm.
with them. It's that you're concentrating.
Right.
And I think
Mhm.
that the rods, just like using a pendulum, it's a tool.
Yeah.
You're concentrating and your intent is to find that grave or find energy
Yeah.
or find whatever you're looking for. It's dowsing means to seek or find. It's whatever you're intent on finding. My kids, as little kids, were taught how to douse when they were little, and they would hide their toys from each other in the house.
Oh, that is so cool.
They would use dowsing rods to find their toys.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Because me watching and critiquing, I'm like, let's see if this works. Well, kids don't know the difference between what's right and what's wrong, or what's not supposed to exist.
Right.
And what does exist, which is why you get a lot of little kids talking to invisible playmates and whatever. But with little kids, they got that intent to find that Pokemon, or they want to find that stuffed animal, that whatever that their brother hid from them, and they would use the rods and find it.
Oh my gosh, I want to do that
all
now.
about the power of intent. It's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. I remember my mom using it to find the water main to our house. She was looking for the pipes, and she just made them out of like metal coat hangers.
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember her walking the front yard just with these 2 rods in her hand. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, it'll help me find the water. And I'm like, what? Get out of here.
All about your intent. I had a plumber who lived next to me in Ohio, and he had a set of dowsing rods on his truck. We had to chat about that one day, and he goes, "Oh, I use them." He said, "Sometimes the schematics of a building are off, and I got to find a water line." And he said, "I use that." I had a gas leak at my house one day. I was in Canal Fulton, Ohio, and the gas company sent this guy out. He had this fancy schmancy tool. I don't even know what it was, and he was trying to find where my gas line was at. 15 minutes, he's wandering back and forth across the front yard, and I'm like, "What are you trying to find?" He goes, "I can't find your gas line." And I'm like, "I'll be right back." So I go out with my rods. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I found it. He goes, "I don't know why it didn't trigger it." He goes, "This is crazy." And I gave him a set of rods and said, "Go forth and douse."
Randy wants to know real quick if you use copper dowsing rods.
We make rods here. My husband's an engineer, so we order copper because copper is a good conductor.
Yeah.
You have L rods and you have Y rods that you can use, and I like using the L rod. And I have, like, in the next room over here from my office, I've got like 60 pairs of dowsing rods cut.
Nice.
Because I teach dowsing classes, so we'll use the cheap ones, but if anybody ever wants to buy a set, then I have the copper. The copper's got a nice feel to it. They're heavy. And if you do a lot of outdoor dowsing, the wind is less likely to blow the rods around if they've got a little bit of weight to them. So my typical set is probably 12 or 13 inches long, but then I have a set that's 3 foot long.
Oh, wow.
I look like a crazy woman. When I pull those out, I'm holding them, and they're like way out there, and I'm walking, but that helps you cover a lot of territory. Yeah. If you're doing an outdoor project, they come in handy. I was actually part of a housing development project, wink, wink, in Green, Ohio. It's been about 15 years, so I can probably talk about it. That they were building these beautiful houses, and the dozer operator stumbled upon some headstones. He believed them to be headstones. They were square cut field stones, no writing on them. So they stopped dozing, and they contacted the local historical society, which got a hold of me. And they said, "Can you come up here and can you help us, but don't tell anybody, because we don't want the word to get out. We're building these beautiful houses." And you know what I thought of? What movie came to mind?
Poltergeist.
Yeah.
Poltergeist, because a building on top of all those graves that were allegedly.
You watch movies.
Yeah.
I told you I saw that one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
So I'm like, okay, I'll come up there. I said, is this a nighttime gig or a daytime gig, or what are we doing here? And they're like, "Don't tell anybody." And I'm like, all right. So I show up. It's in the afternoon. They got a dude standing there with a spray paint can to like spray paint if I find a body. They got somebody shooting video. The builders there, the developer, an engineer, the dozer operator. There was a crew from the historical society. And I'm like, are we going to order pizza, or what are we doing here? I thought this was quiet, you know, like
Right.
they're like, "Do you mind if we record you?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, am I going to be on PBS or what's going on here?" I wasn't
Yeah.
sure. But I found 18 anomalies between 5 foot and 6 foot,
Wow.
all buried east to west, which lines up with the typical Christian burial, where
Yeah.
you've
Right.
got your feet are to the, I always get this backwards. Feet are to the west, head is in the east. Anyway, your
Mhm.
east-west orientation. And they were all lined up like that in 2 rows. So I said, the best of my knowledge and with what I know, these are human. This is an old cemetery. This is probably from the farm or whatever back in the day, late 1800s, whatever.
Yeah.
So I said, what do you do now? And they're like, well, we're not putting a house here. We're not digging anymore. This will be a green space. And I said,
Okay.
you mean like a playground? Because then I was like going down that road, like, do
Right.
they
Yeah.
have that's here?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, just a green space. So,
Like that park
Wow.
right around the corner from Heisenberg
Yeah.
oh yeah, what's
in
up with
Akron.
that?
So that's
Oh.
Schneider Park.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
You're not
Is
going to
that-
say what it is.
I'm like, you're going to explain it or just say
He's
You
like,
the one
it's
that brought it
Schneider
up. I
Park.
thought you were going to talk about it.
I was
Wait,
giving it
it's
to you, man. It's your neighborhood.
It's not behind a nursing home, is it?
It was a poorhouse.
Yeah, at one point, yeah.
Yeah, Summit County Poorhouse, the Schneider Park, and I think they found some bodies there in the 90s.
Okay. Wow.
And they put
It's
a soccer field over it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
soccer
well,
field now.
soccer field,
Yeah.
lacrosse, anything they want.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Schneider said that he didn't want anything built on that park, though. And they haven't, except, well, now they put a walking path around it, but
Yeah.
they've never built
Right.
anything on there. It's just that temporary soccer stuff they've had. They've never built anything. No.
And it's kind of creepy, well, kind of weird. When he showed us the park, because we did a little impromptu ghost hunt out in the field, which it was pretty interesting. We were getting weird little pockets of energy here and there and whatever. But the only thing there was like just like a little tiny memorial plaque
Yeah,
on a
just one little.
bench. Yeah,
On a bench.
that was-
Yeah.
on a bench. It's
Does
like-
it say something about dedicated to the 207 skeletal remains that lie here? Is that the one that has that, or am I thinking of there? If it doesn't have that, I'm thinking of one in Talmadge. I'm trying to think.
I don't think this one does have the count. I think it just says in memory of.
Okay, because there was one in Talmadge that I went to with Laura Lynn.
Okay.
Who's, I think you know her. We went there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it
I love
had
her.
yeah, she's great. It said it actually had a headstone and a walking path around it that said dedicated to the 207 skeletal remains found here.
Wow.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was a field with a walking path.
Yeah.
And maybe 2 or 3 headstones, and that was about it.
I know somebody wants to do a memorial there at Schneider Park, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
No.
But
That's a
didn't you
shame.
say you can see where the bodies were at?
If you look on Google Earth,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could
Look
see
down.
like what was it
Really? You can
Kent
see
State
like
or was
the
it
little-
Akron
huh?
that came out? And there is this like a short documentary that was
Yeah.
on PBS shot about it, and
Really?
I can't remember if it was Kent or Akron Archaeological Department came out and actually they
Akron.
exhumed some of the bodies. It was Akron.
Akron.
I know they exhumed some of the bodies and they sent them to and they reburied them in a cemetery in Monroe Falls, which is like right around the corner from me.
Wow.
So what they found, they were able to remove. But yeah, there's a little small documentary about it. It's interesting.
I can't think of the
Huh.
name of it now. The voice of something, or like I can't
Yeah.
remember. Voices. I don't know. Silent the voices.
Huh. You talked about Monroe Falls. I've talked at the Stowe Monroe Falls Library a few times. That's a great library.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I live in Stowe, so that Stowe's
Yeah,
very
that's
good about their historical historical preservation. I love the historical society here. I'm I'm a member of the Shalersville Historical Society. We actually have investigated and have had public like fundraiser investigations out there. I grew up in Shalersville. Um,
That's cool.
yeah, we raised a bunch of money because they had actually moved. The house itself wasn't the original house built in the community, but it was the first actual house. Like the first was a cabin. They found where the cabin was, and it was like about a half a mile around the corner from where they have the historical building. And they actually, it was built on, it was like a house, but like the cabin itself was just a small part of the house now. So I guess the house was in horrible condition. It was condemned. They actually were able to save the cabin portion. They lifted it and actually put it on a trailer and moved it over to be on the same site as the Eldridge
Wow.
Coots house. And now there's a schoolhouse in Shalersville that they're actually just taking apart piece by piece, moving it over to this location and building it back up, like rebuilding it.
That's cool.
It's just the people are amazing. I love working with historical societies, and I love investigating. Like I know everybody runs to the asylums and the seminaries and the prisons and all those things, but these little places are so packed with
Yeah,
history.
that's why I love Zor Village so much is
Yeah.
that. And I'm a member on 5 different historical societies, and
That's awesome.
one of the big ones was the Rogues Hollow
Uh-huh.
Historical Society in Wayne County. I was a board member, and it was funny because you hear about Rogues Hollow, and if you're not familiar with Rogues
Mhm.
Hollow is in Wayne County, and it's just south of Doylestown, and there's been books written on it and all of their ghost stories because this was a rowdy little area. They had over 20 coal mines in the area,
Okay.
and they had 12 saloons,
Oh
and
wow.
Wow.
everybody, right? And there would be
Yeah.
like robbers hiding out in the woods, and they would like rob the wagon loads and all kinds of stuff. And they had a brothel and all these stories, and they had ghost stories from some of these mining disasters where people would
Uh-huh.
be blowing up in the mine, or there'd be a roof collapse, or
Wow.
something would happen to them. And I had read a book a long time ago called I think it's called Rogues Hollow Ghosts and Folklore, that the
Uh-huh.
Historical Society in Wayne County had put out.
Yeah.
And they have a crybaby bridge. Well, they have like the crybaby bridge
Uh-huh.
and all of the 23
Yeah.
crybaby bridges in the state of Ohio. This one is like it, like actual history with what happened, on that
Mhm.
bridge. And I approached the Historical Society one day. Now remember, this is 2003, back
Yeah.
before Ghost Hunters Taps hadn't even come out yet. So it was
Okay.
like there was like no big shows on TV. I went to them and I said I would love to become a member, and I would like to bring people out here to ghost hunt your woods. Well, they have 30 acres of woods and an old mill, and they have access to the Crybaby Bridge. And they're like, "What? You want to do what? Oh, we don't ghosts. That's evil. That's supernatural." And
Yeah.
I said, don't you guys need money? And they're like, "Well, we do." And I said, "How about if I bring you a presentation next week, laptop and the whole thing, and give you my whole
Yeah.
sell spiel?" So I came back the next week with what I would do. I would bring a busload of 50 people in twice a month, and I would
Yeah.
give them $5 a person. They could open up their little gift shop and they could sell
Yeah.
stuff. And I would walk
Mhm.
people through the woods and tell them the stories. The society would build me a big fire out in the woods. And we brought these 57-foot long buses into this little tiny dirt road. And these people came from all over to do this. And we made enough money that we put all new windows in the Historical
That's
Society
awesome.
building in the mill.
Yeah.
They
Nice.
got a path out through the woods. They got lighting for their paths through the 30 acres. And they were sold. They're like,
Yeah.
"This is great." So I did a lot of
Yeah.
events out there, and it makes me feel good because,
Yeah.
I could drive there today and say, I put windows and new lighting
Mhm.
and all
Mhm.
this in there because they needed money. And there's a
Right.
Yeah.
way to, it's not prostituting the spirit. It's not commercializing the spirit. It's paying homage to the
Mhm.
people that died,
Right.
telling their stories, talking about
Right.
the miners, talking about the Native Americans and the signal trees, talking
Mhm.
about all that history there at Silver Creek and the stories of, um, the bridge, Crybaby Bridge, and how it got its name. And I love it because it made a difference. It's when ghost
Right.
hunters made a difference, just like ghost
Yeah.
hunters making a difference at the Ohio State Reformatory.
Yeah.
You know, back in the early days, they needed money. What was the bread and butter of the Reformatory? All of those public ghost hunts and all of those rentals helped put a new roof on that building, put new windows on that building, and made it what it is today.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's why I don't understand these locations that will brush it off like that. Like, oh, that's garbage. That's whatever. Okay, whether or not you believe in it, it can make you money because people who are into paranormal investigating, they want to preserve the history of a building. They want to help. They want to know that their money went towards windows. You know, they care about it. So why not take their money?
And then there are private owners who say no to Zach Bagans.
Well,
I know one. I know one. And she said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I don't blame her.
Yeah, he approached her and she said, I am not signing off on this. And he goes, I want to do this building. He said, if you don't let me do this building, then I'm never going to say that I was here.
Yeah.
And she goes, I don't want to be part of it. He wanted to portray, there was some little children that were involved in this building, and they had died in what they called the sick room. There was a sick room in this building, in this little coal mining community, not too far from here. And he came there, and the owner approached me, and she said, I trust you, because I've done ghost hunting classes there at her building. And she said, can you tell me about this guy? And I said, well, I can tell you what I know, because I've been to some events where he has been.
Yeah.
And she says, I don't like him. She said, he shoved a piece of paper at me and said, you're going to sign this. And if you don't sign it, then I was never here. And I'm going to portray your building the way that I want to portray it. And she was very sensitive to how her ghost children would be portrayed, because not only did she own this building, but she lived in the building as well. And she said, I didn't like his attitude. And I didn't like what he said that he was going to do. And I had to sign off of everything and give him complete control. And I told him, no. Did I do the right thing? And I said, I think you did the right thing.
100%.
Yeah.
Because it was a gem. I mean, I don't know how many people there, and they're like, this is the most haunted location I've ever been in.
Yeah.
And it was off the beaten path. And it's standing closed now. It was sold at auction, and what a loss.
No.
But she said no. And she was right for doing it, because it would not have been
so, yeah.
it would not have been good.
No,
Yeah.
I've heard quite a few horror stories, from some of even the bigger, more popular locations of how these shows have gone in and portrayed the buildings. I mean, we know firsthand with Madison Seminary how it was a misguided show. It wasn't accurate whatsoever.
It wasn't.
And they have a tendency to make people try to look like idiots on these shows. Like I'm friends with Peg Knickerbocker from the Knickerbocker Hotel.
Yeah.
And Paranormal State was there, and they made her look insane, and she's not. She is 100% legit about everything that she says and everything she's experienced.
Well, television, has to be dramatic to sell. I mean, you've got to have stuff. And I've worked on a lot of those shows. I've done background research for many of them. I've been on quite a few of them. Probably the best one I've ever worked with, top notch, was Destination Fear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Honestly,
I love them.
I worked with them. They were the best. That crew, the staff, they knew their crap. They researched. I was as a matter of fact, it was at the West Virginia Penitentiary, but it was in the cemetery. It was in Whitegate Cemetery, where the inmates are buried at. And we spent 4 hours together. And
cool.
It was hot and buggy and sweaty. And we were running around with paper towels, just sopping our face up.
Oh, no.
But it was one of the best shows I'd ever done. And I really enjoyed working with them. And they researched it and took their time.
Yeah.
And probably
they just seem like genuine people. Like they feel they make me feel like I'm ghost hunting for the first time when I watch them, because they're just so excited about everything, and they just have a good energy, and I loved watching them.
You know what? Probably one of the best shows, I think, was Ghost Adventures, the first one, when they were out west at the Goldfield Saloon. And I've been in there. I've been there. I do haunted Las Vegas tours, and I take people out there. And we were just out there in March. I stood 45 people out in front of the Gold Foot Saloon, and we talked about that. But that episode felt genuine. It felt because they were scared crapless and hopped out the top, the second story window.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
there was nothing proud about that moment.
Right. No.
And that really, I'm like, wow, this is a decent show. And then it kind of
it went Hollywood. That's exactly. It just went Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
yes. Have you
and
guys been to his museum in Vegas?
No.
No.
Absolutely
No.
not. No.
Worth the
I
trip?
took
No.
45 people in there.
Oh yeah.
Never do it
Once. I was gonna say just once.
Yeah, 45 people went in there. It took us 4 hours, and it was like a carnival.
Oh
I can tell
yeah.
you all about it. I won't go back. Save your money. Save your $40 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So,
No
it's a
good Yelp
experience.
review.
Yeah. 0
Well,
stars.
it seems like it kind of seems like it's like, I mean, obviously I support people's collections and their haunted museums, but for a while there it almost seemed like it was kind of a fad, just like the paranormal goes through fads all the time, like haunted dolls, and that's all you saw. And Conjuring comes out, or I'm sorry, Annabelle comes out, and it's all about haunted dolls, and people are selling haunted dolls on eBay, and I got this haunted dolls at an antique store. And I'm like, you keep all your dolls. I don't care if they're haunted or not. I don't like them. You just keep them over there. But it just, I don't know. Just like even the haunted museums were kind of.
Yeah, I think
you were seeing them pop up everywhere.
With that haunted museum was the serial killers.
Yeah.
In there. Walking into a room and seeing Ted Bundy's glasses with the blood splatters and the shirt that he was wearing and pictures of the victim, and walking into the one room and they had whoever the guy was, who was the guy that would skin the victims?
Ed Gein.
That room had the cauldron where he would boil.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, it was in there under glass, and they had like these big hooks hanging above your head. And then on the wall, they had somebody's skin that he had bought under glass, and on the wall with a male nipple in the front and this big sheet of skin. That's the part that disturbed me. Was I don't want to say I'm an empath, but I felt bad for the victims of some of this stuff, that this stuff was portraying almost like a celebrity status. They had a Charles Manson room, and you went in and there was like his hospital gown was hanging, and they had a portrait that had been painted, and the eyes were some of his ashes, his ashes out of his urn. And just, I don't know. It made me cringe in a few of the things.
Yeah.
Jack Kevorkian, his death van was there.
Jesus.
And you walk into the room where the death van was at, and the side door was open, and they had an IV drip in there of the concoction that he used as like a prop. Then they had the photographs of the people that had the assisted suicide sitting around.
Wow.
And I don't know. I mean, I can get
it's disrespectful and tasteless. I mean,
I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to see the Dybbuk box, which we all know the story about that.
Right.
And some of the other stuff in there. But I was not expecting the serial killer, and I just felt really sad. I felt part of like a carnival. Like I didn't want to see that stuff. I didn't. Right. I wanted to see a haunted wine cabinet,
Right.
Right. No, yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I've been to places like that, but like I went to, I think it's called Alcatraz in Pigeon Forge, and it's it's like about crime in general. And it goes through like histories of prisons, things that have happened in America, and it has a couple rooms dedicated to serial killers, and it had some weird stuff.
But like that's a crime. That's a crime place,
right?
Like, it's like a true crime.
Paranormal place. Is that thing,
it's
right?
Not, it's well, that's what I'm saying. It's done in more of a museum kind of museum way, where it's actually informational, as opposed to being like a like an actual haunted attraction where you're like jump scares and
Yeah.
you
That's
feel
like
sick watching it.
the mob museum
Yeah.
in Vegas. I expected
Yeah.
that. So that was part of our group tour when I did the haunted Vegas thing, is we had tickets to go to the museum. And you went in and you saw the actual bricks from the St. Valentine's Day Massacre
Yeah.
site. Yeah, I mean, you expected stuff like that. You
Yeah.
expected to see some mob stuff and some, whatever throughout there, because it was all, crime oriented. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I draw the line
bad.
at somebody's skin hanging.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a pretty that's
Yeah.
pretty fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. So
And then,
That's
like,
just a money maker for shock and awe and people who,
right.
you know.
But I always think about, like, what if one of the victims' families came to the museum?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's their family member's blood splatter on the glasses, or you know what I
Right.
mean? That's
It was disturbing, but he got our money, and I had a lot of people that liked it. They thought it was great. And then other people were like, really?
yeah.
But
Kind
I
of
think
sideshow crap is this?
the highlight of the haunted Vegas trip was on the last day. I told everybody we stayed at the most haunted hotel in all of America, according to USA Today, and that was the Mizpah Hotel in Tonopah, Nevada.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. I've been there several times. It's really cool. So I told everybody, I said, we got a real tight schedule today. If you can all stay on the bus, follow directions, hop off, grab food, get back on the bus. I got a surprise for you. Yeah, I'm going to make it worth your while today. So, because people tend to lollygag, and then before you know it, your time frame, starts to run away. And we had to be back in Vegas for the Mob Museum. So we go to eat at the Alien, which is in Rachel, Nevada, which is a little tiny mom and pop restaurant out in the middle of the extraterrestrial highway.
Nice.
They filmed, was it Day After Tomorrow or Independence Day, I think, was filmed out there.
Okay.
And flat, just as flat as it can be. And Rachel, Nevada has a population of 48 people. And I think 4 of them work at the little Alien restaurant. So we're there and we're buying our Alien, the blow up dolls, the license plates, Area 51, all that cool stuff. And I'm like, everybody get back on the bus. We got 5 minutes. I'm going to take you someplace special. So mind you, this is a 57 seat bus. It's like 60 foot long. We're packed. And the bus driver, his name was Orlando, and he was from Vegas. So I whispered to him as we pull away from the Alien, I said, hey, have you ever been to the back gate of Area 51? And his eyes got all big. He goes, no. Why? I said, well, we're going there now. And he goes, wait a minute. I said, it's 15 minutes off of the main road. It's gravel. It's level. We can be out there in 15 minutes, 5 minutes for pictures, and then 15 minutes back to the highway. Yeah. Can we do it? And he goes, are you sure we're not going to end up in jail? And I'm like, no, we're good, right? Because I've been there multiple times, but I've never been there in a 60-foot bus.
Right.
45 people, right? So I get on the microphone and everybody's like, and I'm like, hey, here's your surprise. Guess what? I'm going to take you to the back gate of Area 51. And the bus just erupts in applause. Yay! Nice. So we pull off on this road. And as we start out, we're throwing up this big dust cloud because we're in the desert, right? And we're a big bus. We're on a gravel road. So there's dust flying everywhere. So I get on the microphone. I'm like, well, they already know we're coming because there's heat sensors on the road. As soon as you turn off, they sense the heat from the bus or a person, and they know.
Right.
They already know we're headed their way. Plus, we got this huge dust plume in the desert.
Right.
Not only that, they have these 18-inch tall rods sticking up in the desert that detect the ammonia from human sweat versus an animal.
What?
I said, so if we were to get out and walk, they're going to know that we're human anyway. So they know we're coming. And everybody's just like, and I said, we're going to
I'd be freaking out going, you're going to get us all killed, man.
And I was loving the drama because there's like, people clutching their purses. Like, I don't know if I'm going to get off, So we're going to have 5 minutes. We're going to park the bus. Orlando's going to turn it around. Do not touch the gate. Don't throw anything over the gate. Don't yell at them because they can hear you. Right. And I have a couple of people on the bus that had been drinking.
Oh, no.
So I told my husband, I said, listen, please let them know that it's a violation, that they're going to go back to, they take you back to Vegas. They
Yeah.
grab you and they take you back to Vegas, and we're not going to see them, So please stress to them, don't get crazy. Don't pee on the fence. Don't do anything crazy.
Mhm.
Right. It was like there was a bunch of people who followed directions, like orderly, like prisoners, getting off of a work detail bus, lined up, took pictures, and ran back on the bus. It was great. As soon as we pulled up to the gate, and I've been there numerous times, and the outer gate, they have these big arms, right, that can go like
Yeah.
this. We pull up, and they're always open. We pull up, and they go, and they close. And I looked at my husband, and he's like, holy shit. He goes, this is new. They've never closed the gate like this. I said, we've
Yeah.
been here with a bus of people. They probably don't know what's going on right now, because we could be crazy people for all they know. But it was the best day ever. I had so much fun. And if you're a diehard Alien Area 51 nut, to go to the back gate of Area 51,
Yeah.
that's pretty badass. It's just
Yeah.
a check mark
That's
off
Area
of your
51 right here.
bucket list.
Yeah.
I see. Have you
I feel
guys
like we're
ever
all
been
gonna. She's gonna get us all
Oh
killed.
no.
have you guys ever been out there and done the loop around
No.
Area 51?
No,
No.
not yet.
Well,
It's all part of my retirement plan. I'm gonna get an
Is
RV.
it?
We're gonna get rid of the house, and we're just gonna travel.
Oh, well, you know what? I have a haunted Vegas trip coming up in March.
Oh, nice.
After you just
Yeah.
told us that you almost got them all killed.
Yeah, I didn't almost. I had it handled. I didn't have enough bail money for everybody, but
Right.
Yeah, right, Matthew. Do 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 do.
I see that. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
We should have done that. But what a
That'd be funny.
fascinating area to explore out there. Area 51 is like 3 million acres, and it's more than just Area 51 out there. I mean, they've done
Yeah.
astronaut training out in that terrain. There's a
wow.
lot going on out there, and for the bus, we make the complete loop, so we do almost
Yeah.
400 miles
Oh wow.
around Area
Wow.
51.
Holy
So
cow.
yeah, they get to hear all the stories of UFOs
Awesome.
and John Wayne when he filmed
Yeah.
out there, and the radioactive dust, and all that
Wow.
crazy stuff that took place out there in the desert. It's cool.
So I'd be like, I'm gonna stay here at the Alien.
Right.
You guys come back and get me
Yeah.
on your way back.
The Alien's an awesome place. They have a bar, which is awesome because they have all these drinks that
Yeah.
are they're themed with like the alien probe shot.
Nice.
Ooh.
Who wouldn't want to try an alien
I'd be
probe shot?
interested to know what's in that drink.
I don't even know if I want to know what's right.
Yeah.
Or you take that and that's what happens to you after a few of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hello, Sam.
Heisenberg, it is your time to shine.
Oh yes. Do you have anything you would like to plug?
This show, I've had fun. I'm gonna
Good.
plug the show. Yeah,
Thank you.
no, I've got tours and events coming up. The website is hauntedhistory.net. So I have a tour to Ireland and Scotland that I'm leading in this September. Then I have a Haunted Ireland that I'm leading next April, and there's still spots available for that. And then I have the Haunted Gettysburg, I have the Haunted Vegas, I have walking tours in Ohio. It's a pretty chill year, I'd like to say. I was averaging over 100 events there for a while.
Oh my gosh.
A lot for a one-person show, because I do all of it. I do everything from website to promo to advertising to leading the tours to taking the reservations to, all that. So this has been kind of a quiet year for me. Do I hear retirement?
Yeah. You deserve
Just
it.
real
My
quick,
goodness.
real quick.
Yeah.
The friendlies in Gettysburg might be gone because there's no reason to go.
I don't know. I'll get back to you that.
He's
I'll
gonna
call
get
my
back to
man.
us on that.
Yeah, so I love doing all that. I've got 4 books that I'm getting ready to wrap up. I started 4 books at the same time.
Wow.
Don't ever do
Wow.
that, because it's been a pain in my butt. I'm just trying to finish them all because
Yeah.
I got them almost all done, and now I'm like jumping back and forth, and so this is going to be a good year for books. My
Is there a
favorite,
link for your books on the website too?
yeah, at hauntedhistory.net, there's links to Amazon, and you can buy all my books at Amazon. And then when I do events, I sell my books at my events and the paranormal conferences and all that stuff. Last March, this past March, I signed an NDA. Can't talk about it, but it's a huge project. So I hope it goes forward.
Nice.
It would be great. It'd be my
Awesome.
swan song. So I'm going to
Yeah.
keep my fingers crossed because I had stuff like this happen
way.
before and it's fallen through. I filmed a pilot for a series years ago and it just,
Yeah.
so many shows out there. That one that I was part of that was pretty cool. It was called Code Paranormal. And it was doctors. There was a doctor, EMT,
Oh,
a
wow.
paramedic, and me. And we used medical equipment, some medical equipment for our investigations, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was nice, but yeah, you know how that goes.
Yeah. Yep.
But thank you guys
You're
for
just
having
talking
me
about
on.
4 books, and I've been like struggling just to start one. Like
Just
over a year
do
now.
one.
It's like,
Don't start 4 because it's been a battle.
And no 600 pages.
yeah.
Oh God,
I
yeah,
have been
know.
struggling to do none.
Yeah.
It's been tough. Well, I'm a grandma now, and the kids, my son and the grandkids, they live on the farm here with us. So I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old who are my little buddies, my little partners in crime.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, it's amazing. So since COVID, it's been nice to slow down. I have to say that. I mean, it killed business for a year or two, like it did for a lot of people, because we were afraid to gather because we could end up dead. Pretty much. It's kind of ironic that a plague almost killed a ghost tour business, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
When you think about it. But it's been nice to slow down a little bit and kind of
I bet.
chill.
Yeah.
And not be in a prison three times a month.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. There's
For
a lot of people
thousands of miles.
There's a lot of people that feel that way.
Yeah, my poor husband. We've spent anniversaries and birthdays and special events and asylums and prisons and my son spent his 21st birthday. I rented out the USS North Carolina. I rented out a battleship on his 21st birthday and then just coordinated a ghost hunt on it the same night. I said, how many kids can say that their mom rented them a battleship? And he was in the Navy at that time, which made it even more cooler.
Right.
So,
yeah.
My parents wouldn't even play the game Battleship with me, let alone rent one out.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever be able to top that.
Yeah.
So, oh well.
Yeah. I'm a volunteer at Madison Seminary, and I had my son's 15th birthday there, and I was like, it's not very often you get like cool mom points with a teenage boy. So that was good.
That's a big deal. That's pretty awesome. My kids got invited with me, of course, to the Ohio State Reformatory for their New Year's Eve celebration years ago. And it was, of course, December 31st, and we saw Shawshank Redemption inside the prison on the big screen. And then we had champagne toasts at midnight and stuff. And my kids were probably 9 and 12 at the time. And at the time they thought it was just really weird, but now they're like, how cool was that? We got to taste champagne for the first time in a prison. And I'm like, shh, say that too loud,
Right.
It's a little weird. But it was cool.
So cool.
That's fun.
Well,
That's
Sherri,
awesome.
thank you so much for coming on. This was an awesome episode, and it's been a long time coming. You've been on my mind forever and ever, but when we do these things, especially it's like we don't get paid for this, so we just kind of like roll with it as it comes. I'm not.
I know.
It's just I always have all this like list of names, and I'm like, when it comes to the week before, I'm like, oh God, what am I supposed to do? Because I'm a horrible planner. But thank you so much for coming on. It was amazing. I think we have probably at least 3 or 4 more episodes we could have you on and just keep talking.
Oh, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
There is. I appreciate you guys having me on, and I know we talked about this back. I think it was 2014 when I did the Kent Paranormal show because that was Laura Lynn and
Yeah.
I want to say that was that James Van Prague. I think
Yeah.
was maybe there that night,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and we talked about our tables were opposite each other there in the
Yeah.
hallway, and
Yep.
yeah, so I'm glad it took us what 9 years to get
Yeah.
around to it.
My bad. That's
He's been
Oh, well.
busy.
yeah.
Yeah,
The whole life and family and work thing.
I know. It was nice. It was nice to see your all's faces and to chat
You
with
too.
you. It's been
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. Yep. So thank you so
Yeah,
much.
Thank
Guys,
you.
thank you for joining and watching us live. Again, for anything Sherry Break, all her events, all her tours that she's doing, her books, right down at the bottom there, it's hauntedhistory.net. That's where you can find pretty much all of her information. And you're on all the social medias too, I believe.
I am.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
But if you want to get a hold of her, that's the place. That's where all the good
Yeah,
stuff is.
you can email me and my phone
Yeah.
number's there as well. So
Awesome.
Okay.
So that's where it is. Next week, folks, it's just the three of us. We're gonna have a little fun. If you guys have a topic or questions, or you want to like have a show about a certain subject, let us know.
Mhm.
Just message us at
Preferably
the
let us know
Paranormal Show.
soon so we have some time to
Yeah.
research before.
Yeah, right. Because it takes a
I
little
don't have
time.
to do any researching.
Don't text
Otherwise,
us on
it's-
Thursday afternoon.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's a free for all. But we like doing it, and it's been going well with that. So we will
Mhm.
see you next week, Crypto Heads. You guys have a good weekend.
And don't
Hey.
forget, don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole. All right, love you guys. Spooky later, Crypto Heads.
Bye.
Bye.
bye.